Good afternoon. We're going to call this meeting into order. It is now 1:03 on March 5th, and this is the meeting of the City of Portland's Police Accountability Commission Subcommittee on Bylaws and Internal Processes. If the Spanish language interpreter, Luis and Martha, can you please give the information on Spanish interpretation? I guess that is not happening at this moment. So I'll move on. Closed captioning is turned on in the Zoom as another means of assistance. Please note that this is an automatic captioning service and it's not always accurate. The city supports access to meetings of the Police Accountability Commission and can provide other language support as well. Please email in advance of future meetings, either as a response to public meetings notice or directly to police accountability at portlandoregon.gov to ask for access assistance, including interpretation into other languages.
I'm sorry, this is Martha, one of the Spanish interpreters. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now, so go ahead.
Okay, sorry. And have we already been placed into the Spanish language channels as the interpreters?
You have not yet.
Not yet.
There's some information that was sent via email to read in Spanish before we do that. So if you could say that in Spanish, please, so that those who might need it can know how to access it before you get sent over there.
Okay, estamos compartiendo algo de información que se ha dado por correo electrónico en español. Entonces, si pueden leer eso antes de que nos envíen a diferentes cuartos.
Thank you. This meeting is a public meeting subject to City of Portland's Administrative Code and Oregon State law and is being recorded. For this meeting, the chat function is enabled for commission members to communicate with each other. Members of the public will be able to ask questions using Zoom's Q&A feature. As the commissioners are presenting and discussing items, if attendees have questions, please feel free to submit them through the Q&A. We hope to use this feature to help guide our conversation during the meeting and future meetings and agenda topics. We like to be clear that not all questions will be answered during the meeting, but if answered, both questions and answer will be visible to you and will be part of the meeting record. To access this feature, just click on the Q&A icon in the middle of the screen. Next slide. The commission began meeting in December. It is in the organizational phase of work now, which is expected to go through March. After the full commission determines its scope and agenda later in March, the commission will move into the next phase of work and develop the parameters for the new police accountability system before presenting that to the City Council in 2023 for their consideration and approval. Next slide. Today's meeting primary objective is to continue discussion of the draft bylaws. We have set up 3 work sessions to finish detailed review on the draft bylaws. This is the first, and there are 2 more, March 10th, and if needed, March 12th. In the second half of March, the full commission will meet to consider all organizational phase documents, including the bylaws. They'll review them, take public comment, and finalize them. Next slide, please. This slide is the current project plan for the organizational phase of the PAC. It is not their agenda, and it is not set in stone. This slide is mostly for members of the public to be able to understand how the commission gets from now through the end of March, after which the commission will begin its work in earnest with discussion of policing and police accountability. Today's meeting is in the middle row towards the right, the green box with the yellow outline. And we'll go to Christine with a land acknowledgement.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Aimide. I would like to bring my personal land acknowledgement forward. I acknowledge the Chinook, the Clatskanie, the Multnomah, and the Clackamas tribal nations who have stewarded this land for generations. I also acknowledge the genocide that occurred in the creation of the United States, and acknowledge and support the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christine. And then can we have the slides back up? And just a reminder of the community standards. I'll just give a moment for the commission to read over them again. I won't read them out loud this time. When all members have finished reading, can you show a thumbs up or that you agree to the statements? Thank you. And then I'll ask Lavisa and Jason to provide an overview of today's meeting.
All right, I'm happy to jump in here. Thank you so much, everybody. I know that we've already all done quite a lot of work on these draft items, and we've had one meeting where we got through essentially Roman numerals 1 through 3 in this document. I think that today the really important things to try to get a hold of, or kind of get our arms around, or get to a place of consensus around are Roman numerals 5, 6, and 7, which are decision making, operating rules, and officers and subcommittees. Those all may be, they could be as quick discussions as we want. They could be lengthy discussions. We want to make room for everybody's thoughts, opinions, and ideas. And also we want to keep an eye on the calendar and on the time, and recognize that we have this meeting today, which is a little bit longer. And we have a meeting on the 10th, next Thursday, and then we have an optional meeting on the 12th. So whatever we're not able to get to before then, we would have a meeting on the 12th, or if we can really power through today, we can get maybe quite a bit more done. Maybe we don't need to have a meeting on the 12th. So Jason, do you have anything else you want to add to that?
No, good job.
Okay. We'll now move into the discussion of the bylaws, the draft bylaws. Before we do, a quick reminder on discussions, please keep individual comments about 1 minute in length, but speak as often as you like. Please allow me to facilitate you. Please also recommend what changes you like to see, and be forward-looking in your comments. So I think at this point, we can stop screen sharing. The visa or Jason, would you like to state what we're going to start off with?
Sure. Let's look at item 5, decision making. And I sent members of the commission and facilitators and staff a note a little earlier saying that I'd made some text changes, some formatting changes, excuse me, and no text changes. But to give us a little simpler read of the document, if anybody has any questions, glad to answer at any time.
I would like to note that the agenda says that we're going to start with officers. The officer section. So
I'd like to start with section 5, decision making. And open the discussion to talk about item A, what constitutes a quorum. And the text is as you see it on this. Well, it's not on the screen.
Is this okay with the group? That this has been changed?
I am not feeling super well tonight. And it's late here already. So I'm fine with starting with decision making, but if we don't get to officers, then I will not be able to contribute to that.
Angie?
I too, sorry, my internet is not being well, so I turned off my video, hopefully, so I don't get dropped off the call, but I do have to leave early, and I wanted to be part of the officers' conversation, if we could. Thank you.
We could be there quite quickly.
Anyone else have any comment? Because it sounds like that people are on a time crunch and would like to discuss that first. And it's what's on the agenda. Dan?
Well, my recollection was that during the last meeting, we said we were going to prioritize this so that we have a way to vote at the main meetings. And I agree with Jason. We've had several discussions about this already, and this section can go pretty quickly, and we can get into the other one right after.
Well, it's up to the group what y'all want to do.
Can I ask
I'm
if
good if
anyone-
we can keep it, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, Angie.
Sorry, Jason, I didn't raise my hand. As long as it can go quickly and we can move on, I am okay with it. So thank you.
I'll keep an eye on the time and I'll table it if we need to and put it in the parking lot if necessary. Does that sound good, Jason?
No, I think we'll proceed with the discussion and see where we get. Please don't table a discussion without the consensus of the group.
Oh, no, I wouldn't.
Okay, let's proceed to look at item 5, quorum.
Yeah, just a
Everybody had
moment. Just a moment, I'll get the screen share set back up.
Thank you, Samir. Is everybody able to see item 5A? Thank you. I see a show of consensus for adopting item 5A as edited.
Can we zoom in a little bit?
You can use the bar on the side of your screen.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And Co-Chair Renaud, can we do what we did the other day too, and just kind of read it into the record, just so we know we're all talking about the same text?
Sure. I'll read the item. A simple majority of active members is required to conduct business. Those members who have been recommended by the council, by the commission for removal, to the council by the commission for removal are considered inactive and not included in a quorum. Any commentary, any comments on this section?
I'm sorry, I'm a little vague on this. Didn't we discuss something about a leave of absence at the last meeting? And if a person's on a leave of absence, does that also make them inactive?
I think that's dealt with elsewhere. City Attorney Sarah Ames.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to say under the Oregon Public Meetings Law, a quorum is a majority of the full board. the number of seats, whether they are open or not, inactive or not. So you would need 11 people to form a quorum.
So you're saying the text as written is not legal?
Yep, that's what I'm saying. Thanks, Jason.
Any way to make it legal?
A simple majority of the commission is required to conduct business.
So our problem is that there may be people who are inactive and the city council has not acted to remove them from the commission. Those people remain quorum and could cause us to really have difficulty reaching a vote because they would not be attending, not be paying attention, whatever. How can we resolve this?
You need to have the city council remove them and replace them.
During the COAB, the city council refused to replace members of the COAB, seeking to starve the beast. How do we avoid that?
How do you avoid that? Do you have any indication that the city council is trying to undermine?
Not at this point,
the PAC?
but they did for the COAB, yes.
I think at that point you go to the media. I don't know. I can't imagine. I think you're, you have to follow the law. That's all I can tell you. And the process is that the city council is in charge of your membership.
Thanks, Sarah. Catherine?
Okay.
Yeah, I know Dan put this in the chat too, but can you again give us that site so we can take a look at what you're relying upon?
Okay, I will. Yeah, I don't have it right now. I'll find it. Get it to you.
Maybe we come back to this once we
And-
take a
and
look. Because
also-
I think we were trying to get around, understanding a majority would likely be quorum. I think we were trying to get around that by just defining what a member is. And I'm not sure what you're talking about gets to that. So I think that's where I guess I'd like to take a look and see if we have some ability to work around that.
Okay, I would continue on. I'll try to find the
Thanks
citation.
so much.
Why don't we set this item aside for now and move on, but make a note of this problem and come back to it at a later time. Is that all right with folks? See nodding heads, thumbs up. I'm reading consensus for moving to 5B, voting, and I'll read it into the record. The commission will use modified consensus decision-making. If consensus cannot be reached, the affirmative vote of 60% of those present and voting will prevail. Abstentions are permitted and will not count as a vote. Abstaining members will be counted for the purposes of quorum. For definition of modified consensus, see item 6.6. Open for conversation on this item. Dan?
Well, you can see I had a note here that recommended that people explain the reason for their vote, especially if they're abstaining or opposed to something. That will help us understand why they're uncomfortable with what otherwise would be consensus.
And I have a reply note that people have the right to not speak. Do we want to change this text to include Dan's requirement?
Well, it doesn't have to be a requirement. We just say we would ask them to do that, and if they decline, that's okay. But I think we should ask so that it, as a way of encouraging people's participation.
Okay, well, that's different than each member shall. Each member may. Zoe.
I think part of modified consensus, we wouldn't get it to a vote before we would have a lot of time to discuss what people's hesitations might be. So unless there's a reason to have those hesitations restated for the record during the vote. I'm not sure it would be necessary when we're already to like a secondary procedure for voting. If that makes sense.
And you're speaking to Dan's comment about shall or may asking people to explain their vote. Okay, thank you. Samir, did you have a comment?
Yeah, so we haven't gotten to this part yet, but actually Zoe's right that that's something that's been discussed, but it's not actually in the text right now. As of right now, the way that it's written, I'll find it in the share screen in just a moment. And we're not on this section yet, but we'll get there in a second. It actually says that in the event that there isn't consensus, here. It doesn't actually say anything as of yet about asking people to discuss the lack of consensus. It basically implies that you'll go straight to a vote. And this is something that's been flagged for potential consideration and discussion later in the document. But while you're on this section, you should know that it doesn't currently say that anywhere. That there'll be an opportunity to discuss why there isn't consensus, only prior to determining if there is consensus. Thank you.
Zoe?
I think it makes more sense to talk about those hesitations that Commissioner Handelman spoke about in the consensus process than at a vote, than at a simple majority vote or 60% vote.
Dan?
Yeah, fair enough. I suppose when the problem is if people haven't felt comfortable speaking up when one other person said that they didn't agree, and then we have a vote, and then other people vote no, we may not know if they had the same reasons for voting no. That's what I just like to leave an option in here to ask people to explain their vote if we haven't heard from them before.
Is that a forum? Is that a tool of facilitation, or does that belong in the bylaws?
Are you asking the facilitator that?
I think so. I guess I am. Yes.
I could say, I mean, my personal opinion, I would definitely ask that. But it can be something that folks have in their bylaws just to make sure if there is not a facilitator that still is happening.
I agree with Ayomide, same position. It can
Thank
be
you, Christina.
either, yep,
Oh, speak. I'm sorry. I'm interrupting.
nope, that's okay. It can be in there just to ensure that everybody's voice is heard.
Dan, how does that feel?
Can you? I believe what was said is that the facilitators agree that we should put this in here. I just want to hear from the commissioners if that's okay. Just again, saying ask, and then it's not a requirement. So I didn't mean to have the shall. Well, I did mean to have the shall because in the Citizen Review Committee meetings, they're all required to explain their vote, and I think that's important. But if I agree that we shouldn't force people to speak if they don't want to, but it's helpful to understand why they disagree. So if you're talking about adding something that says, if they haven't spoken before, people will be asked to explain their vote optionally, then yes, I agree with that.
Is anyone opposed to Dan's proposal that it be using the word may, that we insert this into the bylaws? Any opposition to Dan's addition with the word may replacing the word shall?
I don't see any opposition.
I'm trying to read minds through Zoom. Nod, shake your hand, thumbs up. C-Mob, yes. Angie, yes. Thank you, everyone. We have consensus to add Dan's comment with the word may instead of the word shall. Thank you, Dan. Item on this
Jason, you're breaking up.
Yeah, big time. I thought I was on my side only.
Yeah, same here.
Great.
Jason, are you with us?
No, Lavisa, you better take over for a bit. My internet's bad.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so moving on to B, voting, or, sorry, wait. Are we done with this section? We're done with that? Okay. All right, so I think you can see we have original language, we have edited language. I'll go ahead and read the edited language into the record. The commission will use modified, oh, sorry, wait. Yes, this is correct?
Yeah, the highlighted is correct.
Okay. The commission will use modified consensus decision-making. If consensus cannot be reached, the affirmative vote of 60% of those present and voting will prevail. Abstentions are permitted and will not count as a vote. Abstaining members will be counted for the purposes of quorum. For definition of modified consensus C66.
And then the last part.
Each member may explain the reason for their vote.
Do we have agreement on this section?
Agreement, thumbs up.
Thank you.
Okay.
Lavisa, you want to continue? My internet's bad for a moment.
Sure. All right. Okay, so we'll skip operating rules and go straight to officers, since we have several people who would like to be part of the officers conversation before they need to get going. All right, so officers. I think we had some discussion about this. Hopefully we can finalize our discussion about that today. Essentially, we'll be deciding, I think, between language that indicates co-chairs, what we're doing right now, or language that indicates a chair and a vice chair. So if everybody could take a look at the language that we have right now. And I think Dan would like to speak to this point. So go ahead, Dan.
Yes, thank you. So I was hinting at this at the meeting on Thursday that, to me, I think form follows function. So just looking at the section by itself isn't going to help us make this decision. I think what we need to do is see what we're asking the chairs to do throughout the document and see whether it makes sense to have two people co-equal on this, or have one person that we can look to as the point person, even if they're co-equal, chairing the meetings, which is what I suggested the vice chair would be. And I also would like to add that looking at the PCCEP bylaws that were sent to us as part of our package this week, they had two co-chairs and a alternate co-chair. So there are three people and an executive committee that would make it so that if their two co-chairs disagree, there's somewhere to break the tie. So those are things to think about. So if it's all right with you, Co-Chair Lloyd, I'd like to go through the parts where we're asking the chairs to do things and sort of just highlight those and then help that inform this discussion.
Sure, I think that's fine.
Thank you. So in section 5C, so the part that further defines modified consensus decision-making, there's a proposal that I made that the way that proposal gets, there's proposed language, the way a proposal gets made to the commission is that either a member shall formulate proposal or the chair and somebody wrote in, or co-chair shall create a proposal based on the commission discussion. You know, the intention there being that we have a discussion, goes on for a while. If the persons who came up with the idea haven't made a motion, then the person chairing the meeting can come up with the idea. So that's one. So then the next thing that I found where the word chair came up is in fact in the officer. It is, you know, so again, we're reviewing the section that we're about to deliberate on, but what it says here is that the chair or co-chairs shall be responsible for conducting the meetings, shall encourage full and safe participation, shall ensure that all participants abide by operating procedures, and shall serve as liaison between the members of the commission and the city. And it also right now suggests that chair and vice chair or co-chairs will develop meeting agendas, establish subcommittees, and ensure an efficient advisory process. So that's the chair roles in that section. You go down to section 9, F. If there's a facilitator running the meeting, if attempts to reach consensus have been exhausted, a chair or the co-chairs will then take over for the voting. And then in item 10, communications, section B says the media inquiries will be directed to, and it says here the co-chairs, but it could be the chair or the executive committee or however we're going to finish this discussion. So right now, that's the only things we've asked the chair people to do. And I hope that helps a little bit. Maybe it makes things more confusing. I hope that's a little bit in terms of how we want to structure it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan. So I would suggest that this be somewhat similar to when we changed some language about staff and we said, okay, we'll change this language here, and agreed that we'll change it throughout the entire document. So does anyone else, do we want to take a straw poll? Does anyone else have anything in particular they'd like to say about chairs or co-chairs?
I would also recommend that we hear from everybody, just because this is such a heavy topic. Just like to put that out there for folks.
Sure. I will say that I personally feel that I'm in favor of co-chairs. I find it to be a bit more democratic. I feel it's more in line with the ethic of the group that we've mentioned. And also it's a phenomenal amount of work, and I have found it to be really helpful to have co-chairs working together on things. That's my piece on it. Angie?
Thank you. Let me lower my hand. Oh, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to give a little input as to how being a chair so far has gone. And I'm so sorry, I was on mute, but when Dan said, those are the only things that we have asked of the chairs. And I kind of laughed out loud because it's a lot of time. So right now, Sophia and I are trying to attend. One of us have attend most of the subcommittee meetings too, just to be part of that. Not that we have to be, not that it's been dictated in the bylaws, but just that we're trying to do that. It has been very time consuming, very, very time consuming, and not that it is not completely worthwhile. And I think that being a co-chair is very important. And I hope everybody knows that, that I really take the weight of being a co-chair very much on my shoulders. And I do want to be part of everything in the committee. I don't want to dictate everything in the committee, obviously. I just want to be part of it so I can help and lend more informed information if I can. But so far, the amount of time that it has taken, I really would recommend having at least 2 people doing that. And I do like the recommendation of having this third person available too, because I think that moving forward, we might have even more subcommittees dealing with so many different types of information that we're going to be collecting in the next few months, it sounds like. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you all so very much. And thank you so much to everybody that's been working on the bylaws so far. I know that this has been a lot of work. So thank you.
Thank you.
Zoe?
Thank you both Dan and Commissioner Handelman and Commissioner Angie for sharing. I think that I'm really grateful to hear from the chair of the commission, one of the chairs of the commission at this point, to hear about the workload. It's one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about in terms of how I would like to see this section move forward. I think I really like the idea, Commissioner Handelman, of having 2 co-chairs and an alternate. I think having an odd number is good. And I also like the idea of having an additional person to help with the workload, given how much commissioners are taking on. One of the things that we started to talk about last meeting was term limits. And I'm given the amount of time commissioners need to commit to the work of the commission. I'm curious how people feel about having time limits on that, giving commissioners the ability to like step out if and when they need to without needing to start an entire process, but say like at 8 months or whatever, 6 months, checking in with the commission and seeing if people want to hold like another nomination process, if commissioners want to, if the co-chairs want that process to move forward.
Thank you, Zoe. Angie, you had your hand up.
Just wanted to respond to Zoe with term limits, and it was kind of well, it was I thought that Sophia and I would be the co-chairs during this operational phase, which is up at the end of the month. Hint, hint. so that's what I thought. You know, I love this work, and I will find time to do it if nobody else wants to step forward. But I definitely would like to see more and varied interpretation of this role from other people. So there's that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angie. And yeah, I wanted to say I agree with Ayamide. I did not mean to rush this discussion at all. And I do think it would be great to hear from every single person on this topic because it is a very important topic.
Jason?
I guess I'd like to add that, you know, there's only 19 people who could possibly be the chair of this commission or co-chair. And so we kind of know something about who they're going to be. And whoever, you know, is able to find the time, and I think what I've heard from both Sophia and Angie and from pretty much every other chair of every other commission that I've heard of for the city of Portland, is this a time-consuming task for someone who has the time to do it. And then figuring out maybe after this person has said yay, and the rest of the group has affirmed that we want that person to be our chair, then we think about what kind of help we can provide that person, rather than writing a strict job description or job requirements now, and start to think about, well, you know, CMOB, what would it take to make CMOB a great chair of this commission? And what's he going to need in order to do that?
CMOB. Thanks, Jason.
It will require a lot of work. No, I'm kidding. I mean, I think, yeah, Jason has a point. Out of almost 20 of us, hopefully we'll have a 20th again. But I do kind of agree that, you know, having a third person in that role, because we do have a limited amount of time and a lot to get done. We're actually going to build out a whole new IPR process. That's huge. So we need to make sure that we're not only having consensus, but we're pushing it along, we're moving it through. Not necessarily worried about taking things personally, but more or less just getting the job done. I think that with the expanse that we have on this commission already with 19, we have the ability to be able to pull that off.
Catherine, thanks, CMOB.
I just want to weigh in favor of co-chairs and rotating co-chairs. And then, you know, if the way you get a third is maybe a vice chair, I'm in favor of that too. I'm in favor of spreading the leadership responsibilities among all of us, sharing it to the extent people can serve. I think most people would be able to do that more readily if they knew it was for 3 months or 4 months or for a discrete segment of our work, and that they were sharing it. And I also know that, well, I just think about myself, I would not want to chair this group without a co-chair who balanced my perspectives and my lived experience. So that would just be, I think, a prerequisite for me to do it. And you know, there may be others on this group who would be willing to lead in kind of a co-leadership role for a discrete period of time. But I think it would be a much smaller subset of eligible people if the job was one person for the duration of our term. So just in keeping with our, you know, all of the things we've discussed in terms of our values and just how we were all selected, bringing in our lived experiences and our commitments, and then just trying to, I think the ideas was very intentional to bring all that in and then have all of that kind of come together in a meld together so that we get the benefit of all of those perspectives in our consensus. So that all to me supports a co-chair role, you know, rotating co-chairs, so that that mix continues to occur throughout our tenure. So thank you.
CMOB, can you verbalize your comments, because they were really good and I feel like they need to be heard. And then
Yeah.
Zoe.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking like when I was speaking earlier, but I don't know why I didn't say it. But when Catherine brought up, like, you know, chairs and then the third one being like a vice chair or something, I know that Portland NAACP uses a chair and 2 vice chair models very successfully at present. So there's several ways to go about it. And that's what I was bringing up. And I was also thanking Samir for including a link for police accountability interim roles and responsibilities document.
Thanks.
Zoe?
Thank you, everyone. I just to clarify too, I would love this to look more like having 2 co-chairs and an alternate or vice chair. Just to put that out there. But it also sounds like people are interested in this sort of more democratic or like more horizontally power oriented approach. I really like what Catherine said about sort of being able to share the workload. And so I think maybe we should talk about what term limits might look like. I'm sort of unclear how many months this commission has left, because I still don't know when they started counting. And I don't know if we've ever managed to answer that question. So it would be like useful to know how many months we have left, even in theory, to sort of work backwards for how long a term limit might look like. I know personally, it's like if I have an internship in the States and am able to be in the West Coast for the summer, then like I would have 3 months basically to have like extra time to dedicate to this. But that's not like, that's my personal experience, but Catherine threw the 3-month number out there, and I think there's just a lot of let's work backwards is really what I'm saying.
Yes, I think Samir can answer some of that.
Yeah, so the short answer to the question about the length is that we don't know yet. We're working on getting clarity. We'll hopefully know very soon, just not today. And then the other point I wanted to note is the phases of work length, which we're currently under, is somewhat variable, but is in the 3 to month-ish range of length at present, each phase. That's sort of where the draft of the scope and agenda document is currently at. So it's sort of a not final, but a good thing to assume for the moment.
Thanks, Samir. Seema, you had your hand up?
Yeah, before I ask my question, I just want to thank Samir for everything that he has done and has been doing in the background with this commission. It's an impressive load amount of work. So therefore, I build and I break with my question. Can we put a timeline as to when we do get an answer as to how much time we have left at this commission? I understand that, as long as we're working on our phase plan, that keeps things kind of relatively clear for us, but having an actual, light at the end of the tunnel and knowing the distance to travel, as soon as possible would do wonders with how we're motivated to move forward, and and how close we get to that light, not being fooled by a mirage or anything like that. Whatever other clever analogy.
The timeline for getting an answer, as far as we know right now on the staff side, is before the end of the month, hopefully sooner. Hopefully they'll be able to be a part of all the other conversations that the full commission is having, but trying to get that clarity as quickly as possible. And I'd suggest parking lotting that particular conversation just to save time for the things we can figure out today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'd be in favor of having the option for people to continue being on, that it's not a forced rotation, because one of the things I've seen experienced is that a lack of continuity is very, very disruptive to organizations. So I would like to see it not be a forced rotation. If we're going to come up with a term, it wouldn't be a term limit, which with a term. I also, it's just in terms of this question about when do we end, at the very least, we were told that the clock started ticking at our first meeting, not when we were appointed. So that means would be June 2023. But the language in the remedies to the DOJ agreement that as I mentioned on Thursday night, is coming up to the Judge Simon on April 29th, is that the 18-month clock starts ticking from the time that the court accepts that document, which could be that day, it could be slightly after that. But assuming that Judge Simon approves it that day, April 29th, that would put us out till the end of August of 2023. So just bear that in mind. Those are the two possible timelines, are either June or August of 2023, I think, at this point, something like that. April or August, sorry.
To interrupt you, Dan, I'd like to agree with Samir a moment ago to table the discussion about the end point of this commission for now. We don't have a clear answer one way or another.
Yeah, Dan.
No, I didn't mean to leave my hand up. It's just hard to remember to take it down.
I knew he was done. Anybody else?
Let's turn us back to the conversation of the chair, co-chair. Zoe?
Sorry, lost my train of thought. 1 second.
All right, you're ready now. Go for it.
Yeah. So I just wanted to double down on what Commissioner Handelman said about the terms being not strict term limits, and empowering people to serve for multiple terms if they felt called to, and the commission empowered them to do so. And then as far as, I think I've made it clear what I would prefer as far as the chair structure. So if other people want to talk, please.
The there are a few people who we haven't heard from. Have we not heard? I think we've heard from everyone who's
Debbie
here.
just, yeah, Debbie just.
Aside from Debbie, about chair or co-chair. Debbie, you want to throw in on that?
Sure, I like the idea of chair and a strong and capable vice chair, or whatever you want to, whatever. Yeah, that would be my preference. So they still work in partnership, but we know that one is the go-to person. That's it.
And just to keeping a tally, Seema, I'm not sure I understood exactly what your position was.
So I like the model of having a chair and or two chairs and a vice chair, co-chair and vice chair. But the element, I find it interesting that when it was brought up that having the element of the third to kind of make sure that, you know, if two disagree and that there's a split, you know, there's a majority to pass. That was brought up earlier, and I kind of like the sound of that. I'm more or less bringing it up because I want to make sure that we're exploring these as well, and I'd like to hear more about it.
Would anyone like to offer more? Commissioner Dan.
Well, just kind of going back to my original form versus function question. So we have in other sections of the bylaws that the chairs will be the point liaison to the city, and that they will be the first ones contacted by the media. And to me, like, you know, I really like the idea that our co-chairs are always on the same page and always have the same thoughts and can, you know, say the exact same things. And I'm hoping that nobody will speak for the commission without having an actual position that the commission has just deliberated on, so that there wouldn't be anything said to the media that represents the commission that isn't reflecting the whole commission. But that being said, I think it's a lot less confusing if the city knows, well, this is the point person. And, you know, again, I want to make sure I'm very clear that we can design it so that they all have equal say in deciding what the agenda is going to be and all that other stuff. But just in terms of having a clear point person, as Commissioner Iona just said, that is the one person to go to. I just think it makes it clearer, just so that, because otherwise you have to say which co-chair is the media liaison co-chair. Commissioner Husseini's point about the NAACP may be useful for this discussion, where they have somebody who's nominally the chair and then two vice chairs, and then that way, you know, it can still be an executive committee where everybody has equal power, but it's just clear who the point person is when there's a question of who do I talk to about this, the work of this commission. That's I'm not pushing hierarchy. I'm really not into hierarchy. I'm just clarity is what I'm looking for. Thank you.
Is it possible to identify that those tasks, those responsibilities on the website? Because I think it would be the website that the media would come to say, who's in charge here? And if we had the names of the co-chairs on the website with one of them identified as the contact person for media or for city council inquiries, would that be helpful?
Okay, so I see some nods, but then I see Zoe's hands up and then Angie's hands up. And then I have a question that's actually, that was in the Q&A that I'd like to ask before, just to put it out there. The question is from Julie: if the chairs doesn't have a authoritative vote, then why would there need to be a tiebreaker? Which I figured someone would be able to answer that question. And then Zoe or Angie, did you want to go? Zoe?
I don't know if I can answer that question. All of the people who would be serving as chairs would have a vote.
That's what I thought.
And they wouldn't be making decisions without the commission. It's more the question of if there's maybe an issue with the work that the chairs are responsible for outside of commission meetings, which have been preparing documents for the commission, collating notes. If there's a conflict with interpretation, perhaps having 3 people to try and like figure out what that split would be more in line with what I'm imagining, because they aren't necessarily making decisions, with the exception being what my hand was raised for, which is to talk about the media liaison. I think that everyone on the commission should get media training. I don't know if this is something that the city can help facilitate, but I think that it's important that people know how to talk to the media. And also why not have a separate media liaison person? I mean, does it have to be a chair that's in contact with media? I don't know.
Angie?
Thank you. And I agree with the separate media liaison person. I do kind of want to step back a little bit to the discussion on communication, about, you know, how the media or anybody is contacting that point person on our commission. And right now, you know, as a co-chair, I am not expecting somebody to call me on my phone number or my email directly and ask me questions because I'm a co-chair or whatnot. I'm thinking that I had talked to Samir a little bit about, you know, us establishing an email address that those inquiries can go to. So it wouldn't be confusing for anybody that's trying to get in touch with somebody that can answer something in the commission, because it would be a single email or a single phone number or whatever. It's, you know, however we are going to get that information or those communications to the committee. So I do have to, if it's not already obvious, I am really strongly supporting the co-chair piece of it, just because it is a lot of work, and we want people to feel empowered. And I feel, and I think that with people taking turns being co-chair, it really makes them empowered to feel part of this commission about what we're doing. Not that you don't, all of you don't already feel that way, but I do feel that, like, moving forward, you know, and what Catherine said about having that yin and yang of co-chairs, you know, people that might have different opinions. I think that's a wonderful idea, because, you know, as it is right now, Sophia and I are trying to put bones of documents together and then bring them to you guys, because there is nothing that we're going to publish or say or do without feeling like there's already a consensus from the entire commission. And so, so having like a point chair, I just think it would create so much more work for one person. And I also think that that person might get burned out, to tell you the truth, because it's a lot of work. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Samir, you had comment, and then I
Yeah.
was going to say that we should go to break. Or take a break.
If I may just give 2 pieces of information. First, with relation to media training, the city did not have an immediate answer to that when I asked about it after it came up in a previous meeting, but there are people who do media relations that are happy to do that. They specifically said for the incoming co-chairs as they rotate, because that was the conversation at the time that the initial request was made, but it seems like it would be very easy to expand that to the group as a whole, if that's what the commission wanted. I don't know that that necessarily needs to be in the bylaws, but it's definitely a possibility either way. So wanted to mention that. Secondly, in terms of current practice, you know, people have been emailing the community safety division asking about the commission, and the staff's not responding to those, just for the record, but it would be easy to route the ones that are for commission members or co-chairs to the commission They asked about unrelated things at present, but yeah. And then the third thing I wanted to mention, which is unrelated to this, but just since we're about to go into a break, previous in the meeting, there was a question to Deputy City Attorney Sarah Ames about the legal rationale for the quorum question. And she has noted that it was emailed to all of the members of the subcommittee, possibly all the members of the commission. So that is available to everyone from her. And just wanted to note that into the record since it was asked about during the meeting previously. And I'm happy to let Ivita put us into a break now.
Okay. Since we have another hour and a half or so, 15 minutes, does that sound good to everybody as far as timing?
I'm sorry, I thought we had some commissioners who had to leave early, so shouldn't this be a shorter break than that?
Yes, Zoe, you're leaving in like an hour or like now, right?
I'm gonna wait until we vote. I'm gonna try to.
Okay. Okay. So then
perhaps we could muscle through, or we may be ready for a vote at this point. Do we see if we're ready for a vote?
I would say no.
Can we see if we're ready for a vote?
We do have one other person who's arriving in
Yeah.
a few minutes as well. So I just wanted to mention that, but yeah.
Mhm. Can I see a show of hands for readiness to vote?
Oh, Lavisa,
I
I see
don't see
people
consensus.
talking.
Sorry, I would say I feel fine voting on chairs versus co-chairs. And also I do feel like there is more conversation to be had around who specifically is responsible for the media liaison and communications work.
And then I saw Angie's hand as well. You're okay with that?
Zoe, are you ready to vote?
I think there's still a question I have about whether we're going to add an alternate chair, as well as like if we're voting on a chair and vice chair versus co-chairs plus an alternate, or if we're voting on a single chair. I don't know what we're voting on, I think is where I'm unclear.
Question, do we think that we could take like a 5-minute break and then come back to this just to give people's brain a little bit of some rest? And if there's another person that's supposed to be coming in, gives them time to come in to, you know, share their voice and their opinion as well, since there still is questions. How do people feel about that?
I would agree. Let's do a shorter break.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
let's do 5 minutes. So that's 11 after. Okay, thank you. So let's just begin where we left off. Sophia.
Oh, just wanted to let everyone know that my camera's not working on my computer, so I tried to log on to my phone, but for some reason it won't work because I usually like double fisted it with my phone and my computer so I can see everybody's faces. So I won't have any visual today. I'm sorry.
Thank you for that, Sophia. Glad that you could make it for this part. We were basically talking about co-chairs versus single chairs, and there's been a lot of discussion about that. There's been comment about the possibility of 3 chairs. I think if we could get to the bylaws document, and also just want to remind folks that for our discussion, just to, again, be brief, be facilitated, and be constructive when doing this work with today. And so far it's been pretty good, but just an extra reminder. Thanks for pulling that up, Christine. Lavisa, would you mind kind of going over with Sophia, kind of catching up some? And then after that, Zoe, because I know you have to go soon.
Sure. I'll try to be really brief. Hi, Sophia. Can you see us and can you see the screen that Sierra's
Yes.
sharing? Okay, great. All right. So we're at the officers and subcommittees section, and we started having a kind of a continuation of our discussion from last time about co-chair versus chair, or kind of a third option has been floated, which is maybe we have 3 people in kind of a leadership position, and maybe it's 2 chairs with a vice chair, or maybe it's a chair with 2 vice chairs, something along those lines. But basically, we're trying to decide right now, or we're trying to have the conversation, give everybody some time to discuss what their thoughts and ideas are about chair versus co-chair. And since you are a co-chair, it would be wonderful to hear your thoughts about how co-chairing has worked out, and in particular, if there are any thoughts, troubles, concerns, anything that's worked really well co-chairing versus anything where you think that maybe a chair or vice chair model would have worked better.
So far, I mean, the co-chair has been great. I have been, I wouldn't say the chair of a committee, but I've been the lead, put it that way, which is similar to in different projects. And it's a lot of work by yourself. And I've never been able to do it alone, even as a team lead. I've always had to have help. And one of the good things about being, I'm just going to go into the team lead part, is people volunteer. That's the way, in my experience, people volunteer. You don't choose, and those are the best people generally, is the ones that volunteer to help out. With the co-chair, you don't have to worry about volunteers. You have someone who's already volunteered and is very well committed to that co-chair, sharing that responsibility, knowing that it's a huge responsibility, especially in the sense that we all here, most of us, I would assume, have full-time jobs, and we have families, and we have another life. And the co-chair, between Angie and I, has been great because we can coordinate so that we can take care of ourselves as well as take care of the team. And it's always nice to have someone to, I think if I was in, maybe I should say, if I was not the co-chair, I would like the fact that we have 2 people working together instead of 1, so they can, and they can bounce things off of each other. Inevitably, people have different ideas and opinions. They bring more to the table. Two sets of eyes are better than 1 when it's looking at documents and things. And I will just say that it's really been nice having Angie as the co-chair. I mean, just like today, I wasn't able to make the first part. She was able to make the first part. And, we talk on a regular basis, trying to keep up with things. And, I like the co-chair because basically it makes us talk to each other. It makes us have a consensus. It makes us discuss our issues or our concerns, and we work through them. And that's the thing I like about it, because sometimes you have an idea, if you're just a single person, you start asking, like as a team lead, you would ask other people. It's kind of weird, right? Especially when you're leading something and you're asking somebody else who's not the lead for some input. And unless you ask everybody for that input, it could be a little difficult. But having a co-chair has just been, I feel it's been a really good experience. And I've kind of sort of done it as a team lead, but like I said, those are volunteers and I would have to ask for them. And in this case, the person has already volunteered to be the co-chair. So you don't have to worry about, looking for that. And of course, as a team, people don't have the commitment to follow through. When you're co-chair, you've taken on that responsibility to follow through. And to make sure everything is taken care of for the rest of the team. And it also helps when we're trying to gather information. I'm not available, or if I'm available and Angie's not, you could always contact her, and you can always rely on the fact that the co-chairs will always, at least for us, I think it's the best way, is to never make a decision without discussing it with each other. And, that kind of takes away that parent thing. I think Dan mentioned one time before, going to one parent over the other parent. If the parents are together on one accord, you can't go to one parent and say anything without the parent, well, what did your mom say? Or what did your dad say? And mom and dad, and that means co-chairs, they get together before they make any decisions and talk through it. So that's kind of where I'm at on that. Dan, I'm sorry, I'm taking your job. Sorry, I'm finished.
Okay, thanks, Sophia. Zoe, and then I saw Dan had his hand up as well, and then maybe suggest some sort of kind of straw vote. I know that if y'all come to some sort of consensus on co-chair or like the chair format, like those jobs descriptions can be flushed out at another time, just so you all can move forward and keep on progressing through the rest of the work that needs to be get done. And also, I believe the commission will be talking about that as well. So just putting that out there for everybody. Go ahead, Zoe.
So I took the time over the break to sort of break down what I thought we might need to vote on today, if that's helpful. So the chair structure with chair, vice chair structure, co-chairs, or some constellation of 3 chairs to try and simplify it. And if the 3 chairs are selected, obviously we'll need to talk about that more, since a couple of different constellations have been suggested. Whether or not chairs should have terms, and then also whether or not we should have a separate media liaison, or how a media liaison works into the chairs if we shouldn't. So that's sort of like where I am at in understanding. I don't know if that feels the same for everyone.
Thanks, Zoe. Dan?
Well, I kind of want to go back to the original point I made at the beginning of the meeting for folks who've joined late, which is to look at what we're asking the chairs to do. And to me, the main point, and the point that was brought up by there are 3 people in the audience today, by the way, and one of them is the deputy city attorney, but one of the people in the audience asked where the chair and vice chair will be voting on something where the commission won't have a say. And that's right now, it's the agenda. And that's item 7 in this section that we're looking at. In consultation with the facilitators and staff, the chair and vice chair or co-chairs will develop meeting agendas and establish subcommittees and ensure an efficient advisory process. So just kind of going back to the proposal for having 3 people, that came originally from me. I'm very strongly in favor of that, regardless of what we call them. Very strongly in favor of having 3, because, for instance, let's say that one of the co-chairs wants to invite somebody to speak at our meeting, and the other one doesn't. How do you resolve that? And the way this is structured now, then their decision would fall on our staff. I think since we were appointed to be the commissioners, I think it would be best if we have people in our executive committee making that decision, so that there could be 2 out of 3 vote. And so it's still the commissioner's decision. On that note, while we're talking about while I'm talking about the agendas, there's recently we've been asked to put in suggestions for agenda items, and I think that would be helpful, and I don't know if it has to be in the bylaws, but that but it may be worthwhile putting into this later section that, you know, in consultation with the facilitators and staff and other members of the commission, that the leadership team will develop the agenda so that we all have a chance to weigh in on the agendas. So again, I guess what I'm saying is in a way, we're putting the cart before the horse by deciding a structure before we know what we're asking the people to do. But if people want to vote on that and then go the other way around, that's okay. Thank you.
Sophia.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
I understand your thoughts about the co-chair, the three. I do understand your concerns, but my thoughts are you're starting to add a lot more dynamics to the group. It's hard for two people to come to consensus, let alone three. And I'm assuming that you're thinking about one vote and the other out if somebody doesn't agree. And I could see that being contentious personally when someone feels like their voice isn't being heard and they're being overrun by the 2 against 1. And personally, consensus in my mind addresses everyone's concerns to the satisfaction of each other, not just one person or 2 people. And in our work that we're doing here, it is really important that this commission have consensus on what we do, because what we don't want is to have someone, or I should say a group or entity, causing a wedge between what our goal is. And I do agree that not everyone's going to agree. I don't know if that makes sense. I know that not everyone's going to agree because that's impossible. But consensus is having your concerns heard, having others look for solutions, and that way we can all move forward and not have to feel like our voice wasn't heard, our concerns weren't addressed, and that somehow they've been overpowered by someone else. And I think that's the whole point of this commission, is not to feel overpowered by someone else's vote. I had something else I want to say, but I forgot. So I'm going to leave it open for the next group. Oh, one more thing. I know I haven't been here, but I hear you guys are considering some type of vote on the chairs. Right now, I'm sorry, thanks for scrolling that. Right now, our job is to give this outline to the full commission to vote on it, not for us to vote on it. This is for us to come across and give all the options and the pros and cons so that the full commission can vote on whether we have chairs or vice chairs. So my suggestion is that, can we flesh out these 3 different options? I think it's 3. It's co-chairs, there's 3 chairs, and then there's vice chairs.
Something to
Let's
that
kind of
effect.
go. Yeah, so can we just go through that and put some of the pros and cons in that, so that when we present this to the full commission, they can have a better understanding as to why we brought these proposals for them. I know, Dan, you had some comments. Maybe we can put those in there on the 3 chairs. Put some pros and cons and your concerns on those.
Are you talking about on the document?
Yes, yes. Can we do that, Dan?
I'm not sure. Again, most of the people who were present in the first part of the meeting seem to like the idea of having 3 people. It was my experience, and maybe I'm misunderstood, but most of the people I think are here are kind of leaning towards that idea, and I'm not I'm not going to be, as long as we are very clear about who's getting what done, I'm not as concerned about the words chair, vice chair, and co-chair as I am about having a process where, I mean, as you say, it's very hard to come to consensus, but in reality, the example I gave, if one person wants to invite somebody to a meeting and the other person doesn't want to invite somebody to a meeting, you can't have both. There's no consensus there. It's either yes or no. It's not always that case, but there are going to be times when there's going to be 2 different choices, and you can't split the difference. So I think it would be helpful to have, as we do in the full body, a method to resolve a difference of opinion like that. So that's why I think it would be a very good idea to have 3 people on what I'm referring to as the executive team. It's not referred to in the bylaws that way yet, but that's why I feel strongly that I think the 3 people is a good idea.
So I see that CMOB and then Sophia have a question. My first question before I go into those is if there's a possible way we could have like a straw poll for single chair or multiple chairs, and then hash out the rest later, but not necessarily at the end of the meeting, the end of the meeting or a time that fits for the commission. I just want to put that as a suggestion just to help push us forward with the other things on the agenda. CMOB?
Yeah, the reason why the 3-person structure kind of comes up for me, and I feel like there's some importance to it. I've seen it in operation. Like I said, the example that I gave with NAACP PDX, they have a chair and then a vice chair 1, vice chair 2 structure, and I've seen that operate. And when it comes to something like us, where it's like we almost have a 20-person member commission here, being able to make sure that we're not only on path and pushing things forward, that hopefully that if there's a rotation and I even have an opportunity to be able to help be in one of these 2 or 3 positions, I will need support. I think so. I made light of it when Jason brought it up earlier about what would it take for CMOB to be in one of these positions as a chair, but to seriously actually consider and answer that, I am in this commission. I have 2 jobs, literally, maybe 3 actually, and many other places in which I invest a lot of energy when it comes to immigrant refugee rights and police accountability issues outside of just the places that I work in. And so, what would it take to support me? Raising a family of 8 on top of this, if you include 3 cats, there's a lot pulling at me, right? Like I'm home with my 3 kids right now. My wife is out running her errands. And so, what would it take for me to be supported if I were in these roles? The ability to be able to have a time where I'm not able to arrive at a predetermined meeting and facilitate, or maybe join on one of the subcommittees for 1 day or 2 where I'm attending to personal business or other paid work, and know that there are 2 other people that would be able to be there, and they would be able to bounce off each other to be able to make sure that decisions can be pushed through, and that there's camaraderie or comms can be handed off, whichever way. But that way there's always at least 2, just in case. And if there's 3, there's good camaraderie and communication between those 3. So I see that as a gap fill that would work for me in an incredibly busy life. And it would kind of facilitate that and make me feel easier, that I don't feel as guilty having to step away to tend to these other things that are just as important in my life. So that's one of the things that comes up for me. And it's a very selfish view to kind of look at it in my terms and then kind of ask everybody to be like, well, live my life, put your feet in my shoes. It's not like that, but at the same time, just an aspect that I kind of get along with. Now, would I get along with a structure where it's two co-chairs or a chair and a vice chair? Absolutely. I'll work with what we have. Either way, we're working towards greatness. But I really, really, really want to explore deeply the option of having 3 people. As I've seen it operate, especially for people like me. So, and that's why I seriously want to consider it. And I just want to make sure that we heavily, heavily weigh that.
Thank you, Seema. I lost track. I thought, okay, Sophia. Yeah, it's because your picture, you're there now. So, okay, Sophia.
I know. Sorry. Thanks, Seema. I appreciate your ideas. I do understand we all have busy lives, and yeah, I get it. Family, friends, work is a lot. I just want to just bring one thought. Coordinating 3 people is still more work, and in some senses. You have to think every time you add another dynamic to it, it just gets more complicated in some ways. And I do understand your thoughts. Yeah, you got more people to take, parcel out the work. But at the same time, it's more coordination you also have to do. Getting 2 schedules together is easier than getting 3 schedules together if you guys are going to work together. But so going back to the voting, right now, I think these are all good ideas, and I think that we should submit those to the full commission to vote on whether we want 1 chair, vice chair, 3 co-chairs, or 2 co-chairs. I think our job here is to present to the commission the options that we've come up with and let the full commission vote on those. And I understand you want to have a complete draft for the full commission right now, but not giving the full commission these options would not be, in my mind, it would not be giving them all of the information they need to make the decision. So that's my comment.
I saw Lavisa and then Zoe, and then Samir, did you have a question too? Or are you gonna just?
I can wait till after they go,
Okay.
just because they might cover it.
Thank you.
I wanted to say I agree with and like the idea of like considering 3 chairs. I think that we have a sort of a couple of just contextual situations where we're trying to figure out, if this happens, then what will happen? If there is a media inquiry, who will be responsible for the media inquiry? If there is a roadblock on deciding agenda items, how are we going to break that roadblock? And I do really like, I think Zoe kind of mentioned, in terms of things we have to decide or things we have to talk about. Yeah, just talking about, should we have maybe a separate designated media person, either for the commission in general or a co-chair like person who, does that? Or maybe we say, we have 2 co-chairs, one co-chair is the designated media representative and they handle all of the media inquiries. So in any whatever situation, just sort of deciding, like Dan said, it's more a question of like who does the work, and just knowing ahead of time versus necessarily making a decision about, chairs, co-chairs, whatever language we're using. And then in terms of, deciding on agenda items, I do think it could be helpful to have 3 people. Although I did want to say, some part of me is sort of like, well, if, we're inviting somebody to be at the meeting, I kind of wonder, why wouldn't the commission possibly, sort of vote on that? Like, do we have consensus around inviting this person to be here as opposed to a chair making a decision about who gets invited to speak at the meeting? But I know that in reality, there will be probably times where a chair or a co-chair needs to, make a call about something. So in that case, I do feel like having best 2 out of 3 might be helpful. That's it. That's my thought. Thank you.
Zoe?
I think responding directly to Commissioner Sophia's comments, I think that the commission empowered us to put together a full draft of the bylaws, and if they have concerns or questions, they can discuss those. I think and maybe Samir is about to clarify this point, but I'm leaning towards, like, I would rather have something put together that's more on the complete side of things to try and expedite this process, than opening up this conversation again with 20 people. I think that's why we have subcommittees, to try, because we are all a part of the commission and we were empowered by the commission to make these decisions. Yeah, so I would love to vote on this tonight, or try and move forward on this section.
Yeah, I was going to clarify that exact question and wasn't sure if it was going to be a discussion point, so that's why. Yeah, that's 100% correct what Zoe just said. The group can refer an open question back to the subcommittee if they back to the full commission if you so choose. The draft community engagement framework does have 2 small points that are left up to the full commission to discuss, but the rest of it is a complete draft. And I would posit that if you, so many things are dependent on this question in the bylaws that to not do it would essentially leave the whole thing up to the full commission. And I would also note would probably mean that the full commission does not move on out of the organizational phase for a lot longer than everyone's currently planning on. So, yeah.
Debbie? Thank you, Samir, for the clarification.
So it seems like we could, make the draft with whatever this group decides would be the way to go, but have like a companion document or a little notation that the other options the group considered are. And just so in the interest of transparency, know that we talked about 3 different models, and our draft that we're proposing to them pick this model, but these are other ideas just in case we have a majority of the commission who thinks something else.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Sophia, your hand's up, but you're shaking your head no. So
I'm sorry, I'm gonna be brief. I just wanted to comment on Debbie's idea and say that I like that idea as well. Considering that this is such a big role in the commission, for the whole commission, we really, I would like us to be thorough as possible about this decision, because it's going to weigh on us for the future. And so my thought is, I'm thinking the full commission might want to think about this a little more too. And so that's why I was saying I like Debbie's idea. And because I think this, even though we're having issues amongst ourselves, and I know we have been put forth, yeah, right, volunteered and put forth to do this job. We also have to think about the long-term effects of whatever the draft is and being transparent to our fellow commissioners. So that's it.
thank you, Sophia. Jason?
Can I ask that we table this discussion about chair or co-chairs at this point and allow us to go back and create some text to bring back to the group next week?
Angie?
Yeah, I think that I agree. We need to make this as we need to make this as concise and crystal clear as possible for the rest of the group, because this is a pretty serious decision that we're making, I think. And yeah, but when we do have the draft text, maybe we can share it with the rest of the commission and let them know that we're going to be discussing that at the bylaws committee. So
Good
you know,
idea.
if they have strong feelings, they can attend.
Samir, thank you, Angie.
I was going to say two things, one of which Angie just said, which is to suggest that the full commission members may want to weigh in just to help them be a part of it as well. And then the other question is just to ensure that decisions are not being made outside of public view, but rather that it's just text being narrowed down. I just wanted to state into the record that the assumption would be that it's moving forward with some semblance of multiple and having some options presented to the group in text format, but to ensure that at least narrowing down of it would be what the staff facilitators, co-chairs would be involved in formulating, just so that everybody's on the same page there and it's not assumptive.
Catherine. Thank you. Samir.
Okay, I'm seeing everybody nod along, so just noting that into the record. Okay.
Maybe I've missed the discussion, or where I was thinking the discussion was heading, but it seemed to me like we had a consensus around 3 people. And I guess if we have that, I would like to move on that after this discussion. I mean, I guess I'm just aware we have a lot to do, so I would like to, if we have that, can we, I guess this is my, your suggestion of a straw poll to just see that. I just would hate to have to go back and spend another hour on this if we really we've accomplished that after the last hour. And it felt like to me that those people who were wanting a single chair were comfortable with the 3-person model as an alternative. And if it seems like a lovely compromise, because I think the people who were interested in co-chairs also found that model would work for them too. So don't want to speak for the group, but that's what I've heard. And if we're there, maybe that will facilitate then the drafting that Jason was proposing to do.
I'm seeing fingers, Jason.
Yeah, sometimes we overtalk things and end up having too much work. So yes, we should, I agree.
Great. It seems like there's consensus on multiple chairs or co-chairs, or figuring out what that language is. And then I guess creating text for that at some point.
Yeah, I think what I'd like to do is bring back a couple of different versions of text and share those with the full commission, and then also with inviting people to write back to meet with changes. And then we'll note that in the document so we can see people's comments or suggested changes, as we did with the bylaws document, and bring that back here. I'd also suggest if we can just agree to that we've agreed to rewrite this chair or co-chair problem, that we proceed to look at the bylaws and try at least to get item 8A decided. I think we can probably do it by saying, tentatively, we agree that it should be A or B, yellow or green, chair or co-chairs. But can we look at the rest of the language and see if we can get some agreement on the remainder of item 8A?
Sorry, just to clarify, all the Roman numeral sections as well, like the entirety of 8A. Yeah.
Item 8A is all of officers, and then item B is subcommittees.
Yeah, but the entire, all of the 8AI, 8AI, not just the first 2 sentences.
Yes, thank you.
Sophia had a
Everybody
question.
can see that on the screen?
Yeah, I can see it. I just wanted to clarify. So you're suggesting that an A, I through 6, or is it 7?
It's 7.
Okay, yeah, through 7, yeah. I through 1 through 7, be voted on to bring forth to the full commission. Is that what you're saying, Jason?
No, I think I'm saying, can we look at this now and see if there's any language we want to think about, talk about, make changes to now?
Okay.
We might get to the point of voting on it.
Zoe?
I like the language. I like what the chairs, I think it's very clear what the chairs are responsible for in this section. And so if we can make, I like the language outside of deciding specifically what the chair structure looks like, and I would be happy to move forward with it as written.
Lavisa? Thank you, Zoe.
I noticed under Roman numeral 6, the chair or the co-chairs will also serve as liaison between the members of the commission and the city. I think that's kind of that's one of the items that we were talking about just now in terms of, do we want to have one person be the designated co-chair who is the liaison? So maybe we could quickly write some language there, just saying maybe like, one, I don't know how it might look, one designated co-chair will serve as the liaison between the members of the commission and the city, just to make it really clear that one person will do that job and will agree to do that job.
Samir, you want to do some magic in there?
Yeah, if I could, I can put that in there. I just wanted to note that the staff of the commission also qualifies as the city. So we would want to be able to be in communication with all the co-chairs and maybe allow specific details to be mentioned, but I can definitely put in whatever text the group wants in here.
It's a very good point. So defining the city a little better, we're assuming that the staff can talk to the
yeah, it may be helpful
members.
If I may make a small suggestion, some more broad language, something to the effect of having the co-chairs able to determine how they allocate work amongst themselves.
I see people nodding their heads. Okay, I think that's a go.
That's the Samir magic.
And then I saw a billion hands fly up, so I just want to make sure, does everybody still want their hands up? Do they all have questions? Do you all have questions? Okay, Samir.
Oh,
Debbie.
I was just going to say that it seems to me we could leave it up to them to decide if one of them wants to be the spokesperson, or I feel like we don't have to manage them to that extent. If we have 3 people or 2 people, whatever we end up with, that they can work it out who's going to do those kinds of things. And that's the language that we just heard, sounds that Samir suggested, sounds like it's headed right in that direction.
Seema, I saw your hand up, and then Angie.
Yeah, I was actually, so Samir brought up the point that I actually wanted to make regarding like the liaison, in essence, like the liaison between members of the commission and the city. Samir's role and his job description, I believe, would contain that as well, but also at a broader effect, Samir would have a form of assistance in a lot of these roles. So I want to be able to try and figure out and clarify, do we need to include language for where Samir falls in, like, for instance, in item number 6, in Roman numerals 6, as well as elsewhere in here?
Angie, and then Catherine.
I think that I've been working with all of you way too much, because Seema just said exactly what I was thinking. That
Yes.
that 6 is really vague. I don't like it. Just reading it, it doesn't make that much sense, and it really doesn't take into account CMOB and not CMOB. I'm sorry, Samir. I'm so sorry, Samir. And
my mom is listening.
Sorry.
The joke is that it's my family name, Samir. So.
Oh, is it? Oh, there you go. And so I think that 4 and 6 need to be clarified a little bit more in relationship to and just not relationship. They just need some clarification. And if you want me to, I can try to put something together and send it back, or we can discuss it now. I don't know. I don't think we want to discuss it now, but that's just my feeling. Thank you.
Catherine, Dan, and then Jason.
I just have a discrete point, and it's that the city's charge requires us to provide quarterly reports to the city. So I'm assuming that is a co-chair responsibility, and because it's a part of our charge, I feel like it should be here somewhere, and could have been in that 6, the liaison between the commission, it could be, and the city council. Then that would cover the just assuming, knowing that we've got the leadership of our commission, understanding that that is an obligation and that is where it resides.
Thank you, Catherine. Dan?
Yeah, I want to just first of all say that the liaison language came from the Charter Review Commission language we were given to work on. So that was not something that just came out of any decision or discussion that we had when in the work group that was working on this section. I think instead of saying serve as, or we can say select who will be the liaison between the members of the commission and the city, and that's consistent with the new language that's being proposed in subnumeral 8 now. I made a statement before. I'm going to repeat it here that we are the commissioners, and we were chosen to do this work. And I really appreciate that we have a staff person, and the staff person has been doing a lot of heavy lifting behind the scenes. But in terms of our communications in the bylaws, I'd like to not focus on what the staff's role is in the bylaws. I think that if the staff is going to come along with a chairperson or a co-chair, we can decide that separately from putting it in the bylaws. My last comment is going to be that if we scroll back up to our question of chair and co-chairs and things like that, I mean, unless other people are still really hung up on the term, I already have said that if we're going to have 3 people, I don't all that particularly care if we use the term chair, vice chair. I just want to make sure that we have a way to break a tie between 2 people who'd be running things. So if that makes it easier for us to vote on this today, it seems like the green and blue, let's say 3 co-chairs / 2 co-chairs and an alternate co-chair, if it comes down to deciding one of those 2 things, I can live with that, which is called standing aside in consensus. But that I feel strongly that it should be 3 people. And I haven't heard that many arguments against having 3 people. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Jason. Samir has made some text changes to alter item 7. Can everybody read those? And we're swapping out the text that we'd worked on before. No, it's both items, 7 and a new item 8.
Co-chair Renaud, if I might, the part about the quarterly reports, we're supposed to decide how we want to give quarterly reports. So I'm not sure if I feel comfortable putting that into the bylaws without having a fuller discussion about that. I don't think it's necessarily a bad proposal, but that is something that is outlined in the documents that created us, that we decide what format those are going to take and things like that. So just ensure, instead of provide, maybe to ensure quarterly reports are given to the city council.
Okay,
I also want to make a note that Catherine asked if everybody was at consensus. Do you want to possibly check that and then move forward? If that's all right with commissioners?
looking for consensus on adopting this language pending changes to the chair co-chair question, which we'll deal with next week. Thumbs up for consensus on this item A. Sophia?
Oh,
Yep.
Thank you. I saw a nod, but I wasn't exactly sure. I'll make sure. Well, that's a big deal. Thank you, everybody.
Yay. Catherine?
And I just want to ask if we, the rotating nature of the roles, I think was not addressed in that language, was it? So that is the remaining, is that right? And just want to make sure I'm following the steps here. That's what's remaining. Do we have, I'm not sure if we're at consensus on that. It sounded like maybe the possibility that people would serve in 3-month increments was a discussion that I was hearing. I'm not sure if people are, that they, could contain, there wouldn't be a limit. People could re-up to serve another 3-month increment, but that we would begin with that. And I'm not sure if we have consensus. I guess maybe you could test that, because if we get that done, then I think we're pretty well through the issues here.
Let's discuss.
I'm in favor of that, I'll just say.
Got it. Sima?
Oh, you're on mute. You're still on mute. There you go.
Sorry, there we go. I have a strong opinion on this one. My opinion is that we do have rotations. 2 months, 3 would be my limit on this. And yeah, and the reason being is that, unless this is an organization, which is, it's limited in duration. I think we need a distribution of our leadership, because we have a lot of valuable and strong minds here, and we need everybody's leadership. And so I value everybody's leadership and the qualities of which we have on here.
I also wanted to put out there that phases of work was also an option as far as rotation, as far as the phase of work that is brought up for whatever the different sections of work that you're all going to be doing. So I am so tongue-tied today. Sorry, y'all. Zoom fatigue is real. As another option besides just having like 3-month chunks, looking at it in terms of phases of work and completing those phases of work. Thank you. All right, it's Debbie and then Sophia.
So I'm neutral on whether we go with phases of work or like by the quarter, 3-month blocks. But I like the idea of having the option, if somebody likes being one of the co-chairs and wants to re-up, that's an option.
Sophia. Thank you, Debbie.
I'm thinking out loud to the group. I'm not really making any comment, but I'm just thinking out loud. The phases, my thought is phases versus the monthly rotations, whether it be 2 or 3. My thought is just to bring to the group, that continuity within the phase. How many rotations would we have in a phase? And would that be, how would that affect the work that we do in that phase if we have too many different people? And then the other thought is, I don't think 2 or 3 months is a problem, but when she mentioned the phases of work, that continuity it popped back into my head. And I will tell you that just being one of the co-chairs for these few months, 3 months, I could say is reasonable, but how long are the phases? I can't even remember how long the phases are, how many months they are.
They're about 3 months apiece.
Okay.
They're about that. Just to add clarity. Zoe, and then I saw Dan's comment in the chat. And that's a good question. But go ahead, Zoe. And then I know I just was sharing I had brain fatigue, Zoom fatigue, so we might need to have another break here shortly. Just want to put that out there as well.
I like having I think I'm a bit concerned about phases stretching out to be longer than what we anticipate. And I just want to be like respectful of people's ability to commit for a certain period of time. And so I like having the like maybe a hard number, and especially with the caveat that people who are serving can continue to serve if they so choose, if the commission chooses. We'll flesh all that out later. Then I think continuity, I imagine that will be not unusual to have at least one chair be someone who has served before. And so that might help with continuity. I don't think that we need to necessarily write that into the bylaws, but that could address some of the continuity issues. But I do like the idea of having a discrete amount of time, either 2 or 3 months. I think maybe 3 months I'm leaning toward, just because of, I guess, how often we have been meeting, which hasn't been that often, but we are starting to meet much more frequently now. So yeah, I'm ambivalent about 2 or 3 months, but I think that that's sort of where I'm comfortable as well.
Go ahead, Jason.
The duration seemed to be rather arbitrary at this point. My vote would be that we ask a person who wants to be chair or co-chair to be committed to doing the work for the duration. And if they're not able to do it, to commit also to making a warm handoff to the next person. What will really get us in trouble is if someone, and I think a lot of transitions will get us into trouble because you'll invariably have continuity issues. But what will really get us in trouble if someone drops off precipitously. So making a commitment for a person who's transitioning out of a chair role to work with the incoming people and the staff to make that a smooth, warm transition.
Thank you, Jason. Any other comments? Dan?
Well, I'm just, again, thinking ahead to when we're in the depths of deciding the details of the new board as we outlined at our last meeting, and then we have to interrupt that every 3 months to have a vote on who's going to be on the board, on our executive team. But I appreciate the idea that we should give the opportunity for people to step down if they need to. But I just want people to bear in mind that this is going to have to be on our agenda every 3 months if there's a rotation every 3 months. I'm not opposing it. I'm just putting that out as a statement of fact.
Thank you, Dan. Jason, sorry.
You should also think about how to help people step up into more responsible roles. I've heard as I've talked to people in the group that some people are on schedules where they have time to contribute and then no time to contribute. And so coordinating that, maybe with the help of staff, to say, okay, Simab, you've got the next 3 months, you're not doing anything, the kids are at Disneyland, why don't you take over media relations for the next 3 months? And then boom, I'm going to get you involved some way or another. But helping people step up into responsibility as well as stepping down from responsibility.
Simab.
I'm sorry. I think I'm missing where I'm not involved. I'm here. Hi, guys. No, I would, I agree, and I see the balance that's to be played here. But through experience, I've also seen where when rotations take place, particularly with intense projects that work through. With Oregon Health Authority, they have the Traditional Health Worker Commission that rotates its bodies. And though it's not necessarily limited in duration in itself, their projects tend to be duration oriented. And quite often the handoff that's coming, the interested parties are usually very plugged into the work and are waiting possibly to and are the handoff tends to be very warm simply because the interest in the investment is already there. And I think also it makes it it allows us, say, for instance, if I'm a chair or co-chair, it allows me to be able to make sure that I'm consistently engaging with everybody, making sure that folks are actually plugged in, doing my job, and encouraging that power to be handed off to the next one, and making sure that through engagement, through active efforts of engagement, that these people, the handoff it tends to be seamless, and interested parties are lined up to basically take over and move the ball. But it encourages a diversity of thought. I think there is a lot of very powerful voices again on here. We're at 19. We're possibly looking to get back to 20 again. And I think there's great quality of leadership to be explored to help move this ball forward and get the best outcome out of this this limited duration of a commission.
Thank you, CMOB. I just want to give y'all a time check. It's 3:12, and our interpreters also need a break. So if we could take like 5-7 minutes, and then Sophia, thank you for holding for your question. That would be great. And then continue where we left off. Okay, so we left off. Sophia, you had a question, and then Seema.
Actually was more of a comment, commenting on CMOB and also Jason about the rotations, and knowing that we have a very diverse group here, and the efforts to and I don't want to I want to say, I'm trying to figure out how to say it, having a way for people to co-chair if they want to, in the capacities that they are most comfortable in. Because I know we have a great diverse group of people with all types of leadership skills and things to offer. And I don't know how to go about doing that, but I'm just agreeing that we really need to find a way to make sure that, you know, for some of those people who maybe don't want to be the co-chair of the commission, but they are really good in being a co-chair for a subcommittee, that they have that opportunity, and that we encourage them to do that. So that was my comment. Oops.
Thank you. Sophia, Seema.
Yeah, I don't, this is just a small tangent, but I just wanted to read into record the reason why we do this work, a piece of news that has just come up. And I think it's just important just to even put it out there, have it reflected upon in the background as to why we're building out an IPR process and where it could have played in. But Zane Sparling with the Oregonian just sent out a tweet saying police fatally shot Joel Arevalo 2 weeks ago. Police won't say if he was armed or a suspect in the shots fired call that closed off a condo complex. Neighbors say he was freely walking around waiting for closure to end after visiting a friend. So, you know, who's to say why people don't file if there was potential reason for folks to be able to file an incident or will report something about this incident through an IPR process. Maybe this doesn't qualify for it, but there is a lot of reasons why things don't get reported even into an IPR process. And this might have been one of them that would have brought out this loss of life earlier. So again, another officer involved shooting that has taken a life away for a very mysterious reason 2 weeks ago. And that's the reason why we're here.
Thank you. Jason, can you read the gentleman's name into public record, please?
Yeah, family is calling this person Michael Arvelo. There's some salient facts missing from Sparling's article, but Simab's exactly right. And this, where IPR did not look at lethal force, this commission will be able to do that. So it's quite a responsibility on our shoulders.
Thank you, Jason. Dan also added some more information in the chat too, if you wanted to look at that. So thank you for that as well, Dan. Okay. I think it shows how important this work is, that everyone's taking a moment. So I wanted to acknowledge that. I'd like to put out there as well. We might have to use the terminology accept and accept non-closure. I just want to put that out there because we are getting close to the time where we also would want to be able to have comment from the public too, as we get closer to the end of the meeting. Maybe we can just kind of recap where we're at, and Lavisa or Jason, I'm gonna turn this over to you guys.
Sure, I think we did really good work today, folks. It got farther than I thought we would. And I think we're real close to a decision about chair co-chairs. We just need to see the language, share it with others, and come back and reconvene and slot it right in there. I think that'll be easy. It's kind of downhill from here with the bylaws. It gets a lot easier. This is the hard part. But now we can vote. And pretty soon we'll know how we're led. So that's great. Lavisa and I will work out several different versions of the chair co-chair question and share those within the next couple of days, because we're all going to be back here next week. Is that right? Next Saturday.
Yes.
Burn up another Saturday afternoon talking about bylaws. And
Thursday first.
Next Thursday.
Thursday the 10th, and then if needed, Saturday. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I think we're going to try to get it done by Thursday.
Martha, I see your hand up. Do you need support? Okay, I just wanted to make sure and check in. Let's see something. Okay, Dan, your hand was up. And then
thank you. I didn't want to move off this topic. Wow, the Spanish translation is coming across on the main channel now.
Uh-oh. I think we're trying to fix that. I think that's what the hand was.
Just a moment, please.
Yep.
Okay, it should be working now on its separate channel.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to leave this section. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing what's done with the first part that is in many colors right now. But the section 7, where I suggested that there be some consultation with the commission about agenda setting. I'd just like to have some language in there about that, so that you know, we don't have to decide what that looks like, but I'd just like to it be acknowledged that there be some input from the whole commission on what the agendas look like.
I see nodding of heads. It looks like everyone. We need a second set of eyes, Louisa or Jason. Are we all seeing that?
I've seen general agreement about that.
Okay.
Yes, I think we should add some language there. And just to check the temperature of the room, my past experience is that agendas should be circulated quite a bit before the meeting starts, draft of members to add to, and that members should know that they can add items and forward those to the chairs, and we can make that apparent.
Sophia?
I just have one comment about that. Depending on the situation, the co-chairs or whoever we end up naming them, tri-chairs or whatever, that you know, if they have an agenda, I agree that we should have input. But if there's something that's timely that the commission has to do or the co-chairs have to do, that adding some items to the agenda can be pushed off to another meeting, because you may not have time to get to everything that people suggest in that agenda and actually get the commission's work done. So that's just a thought.
Your hand's still up, Sophia. You're done, yes? I just want to make sure. Any other comments? I see Dan and Catherine. I'm not sure who had put their hands up. Let's do Catherine.
Why don't Catherine go first, and I'll go after.
Yep.
Thank you. I just wondered, do we get to consensus on optional rotation based on segment of work? Was that, and if that happened before I got back on, I'm sorry.
There's no consensus on that issue as of yet, and that'll be circled back to later.
Okay, great, thank you.
And then Dan. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you. I think that the specifics of how the commission can put input into the agenda can be put off to the other document that we're talking about creating. That's why I'm saying that there will be some way for the commission to weigh in, and we can talk about the specifics about that later. So, you know, as much as I appreciate both Co-Chair Renaud and Co-Chair Glenn's input, I don't want to be talking about that right now when we're doing the bylaws. I think we can just say there's somehow the commissioners will be involved, and then we can get the details of that in this. What's the full name of this committee again? It's the subcommittee.
Bylaws and internal processes.
Internal processes document.
I'm not sure how the commission feels, but it seems like that there's kind of some consensus here, and maybe we can go on the next section, I guess membership. And then we have about 15 minutes. I just want to put that out there because I know that we still want to have public comment.
The next item is subcommittees. And I just propose that we do this next week. We're all getting a little shaggy, and hear from our public members.
Did I hear yes, consensus on that? Yeah.
Proposal to move to public testimony. I don't see any consensus. I don't see any nodding heads.
I know, I'm same here, Jason. I'm just kind of waiting. Okay, I see a hand up from Dan. I see thumbs up for most people.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear from the public. I don't, there's some concerns that I have about meeting and kind of generally stuff that's happened at meetings that I'd like to address before we log off today. So I either do that now or after we get public input.
We've got a little time. Why don't we do that? How long is this going to take, Dan?
Well, it depends who responds to me, really. What I'm going to say is going to take me about a minute.
Go for it.
Okay. Well, we have the leg up on some advisory boards by having a member of the city attorney's office here at most of our meetings. But I also feel like as we're deliberating, if we run into problems that may be, or issues that may be problematic from a legal standpoint, that those can be pointed out to us, but we shouldn't necessarily take those as the end of the discussion, it's legal advice, and we can respond by saying, well, let's figure out a way to fix that. And specifically around the question about the membership that and the quorum that was brought up, if it has something to do with what City Council charged us with, we can go back to City Council and ask them to help us fix it, instead of having to defer to what the law may or may not say. So I think that I want to make sure that we are clear, again, that this is our commission and we're going to try to make decisions that'll make it so that we can do our work within the boundaries of the law and what the City Council set up for us. And if the City Council didn't set us up right, we need to go back to them and fix it. Thank you.
Any comments? Oh, yeah, Catherine.
You know, I really agree with that. And I think that in some ways, this quarterly reporting requirement that we have is a way to do that. So for example, on this quorum, I'm reading through the advice, and it seems a little bit ambiguous to me. One way to do that would be to simply in our quarterly report say, here's how we've interpreted this, and the City Council feels like it deviates from their charge, they can let us know. But that, I think there is a process that's set up in our charge to report to the City Council, and if we're doing something outside the charge, then I think they can give us that feedback. But I guess I don't necessarily think that I think we should be continuing to design the commission that we want here, and to the extent that we have the ability to do that consistent with our charge. And I think we can, we have a process for checking with the City Council on that as a part of our charge. Thank you.
Jason?
Well, we're about at 12 weeks now. We don't know when this commission began, and we don't know when it will end, but we've been meeting for about 12 weeks now. So it's about time for a quarterly report. So I would suggest that we begin to prepare that and get a date with City Council to do that now.
Any comments? Sophia?
I was just going to say, is that in our bylaws? Who's going to do the report? I'm making a joke.
I'm going to make Dan do it.
Debbie?
Because they'll know what's coming.
I'm not volunteering to do it. I just was thinking that, do we even know, well, have we even decided what form that report's going to take? Seems to me we could just, steal stuff from the stuff Samir's been writing and staple it together and send it to city council.
That word, don't use it. Don't use steal. That's,
Sorry.
That's public record.
Okay.
Borrow.
We'll borrow, we'll utilize the fine
Utilize.
work that he's done, right?
collaborate with.
Right.
Dan, thank you, Debbie.
Well, I agree we can use some of the language that's gone out to the public about what we've been working on. We also might want to bring up some of the issues that we've already, seen as roadblocks, and add that to that report. And I would hope that we've come up with a process. I guess we can do it differently the first time if we need to, because we're already past 3 months. But and my suggestion would be that part of our process is to give this report at a city council meeting in public, where the city council is going to hear from somebody from the commission about what we've been doing, and then they can ask questions and then take action if they need to. So I don't want to just staple a couple of things together and hand it in. I want to make sure they hear from somebody from this commission.
I saw Samir's hand pop up and then drop down. Are you okay?
It was on a semi-related topic before we move out of because we were still technically in subcommittees. I just have one quick observation to make before that, but it wasn't super relevant yet. So I'm happy to wait if anyone else has anything on this subject. Okay. So I just wanted to observe, because I want to make sure it's put in the parking lot and everybody's aware of it. There are, and it looks like we're not going to have time to discuss today, and that's totally fine. So putting in the parking lot, there's 2 red highlighted sections here. One is under officers, and it relates to giving the officers the authority to establish subcommittees. The other gives the commission the authority to establish subcommittees, which seems contradictory. That's why it's red highlighted, and wanted to make sure that when this subcommittee discusses that's just in everyone's mind as a thing to figure out, not now, but later.
Thank you, Samir. So are we good to go to public comment now?
Yes, please.
Okay. We get on the little, let's see, okay, everybody. Sorry, this is taking a little longer than I'd hoped. I'll make sure I got, okay, so we have 3 attendees. Thank you for being here with us today. We'll be taking public comment at this time. Before we take verbal public comment, I want to note that verbal public comment is one of many ways to get in touch with the commission. More information will be on the commission website, portland.gov/police accountability, with how to submit written or other forms of public comment. We ask that members of the public keep their comments 90 seconds in length and keep their comments focused on the draft bylaws. You can raise your hand in the Zoom if you'd like to be called on. I am not seeing any hands at this time. So at this point, I'm not seeing any public comment or anyone that wants to speak up. So we have 15 minutes. Debbie?
So I don't know if this is a little off topic, but since we just had public comment, I just wanted to say that I felt like we didn't, on the community engagement plan, we didn't really get to the point where we got to talk, there was real discussion about how we want to handle public comment. And so I just wanted to put that out there and hope that we can spend some more time talking about that. I sort of find the way that we do it right now to be a little bit kind of off-putting, and I'd like us to be able to talk about that and think about how if we might want to change our the way we do it.
We got the clock.
Okay, it's done now. So yeah, so that's all. I want to put that thought out there so that to highlight that I would like to see us either the community engagement committee, which I understand, I mean subcommittee, which I think they said they were done, but I felt like we really that part of it didn't really get finished.
Thank you, Debbie. I know that there are some topics that are in the parking lot that need to be discussed. Jason, you had comment, and then maybe we can go to that just to kind of recap.
Yeah, and maybe Debbie's item belongs in the parking lot as well, but we should probably designate a way of starting to write this general operating rules as well as a subset of the bylaws. And perhaps there could be a subcommittee. I know people hate this subcommittee, the operating rules committee that could form out of this committee to do that work.
Okay, so Debbie, was your hand still up, or did you?
Oh, no, I just put it back. If I just say, to tell you the truth, I'm kind of not clear on whether the procedures around public comment are part of like internal processes or the community engagement plan, or exactly where it belongs. So that also we need to, and maybe somebody else knows, but yeah, I don't know where that is landing.
Dan, and then Christine, because you're going to do the recap.
Yeah, I'm thinking that maybe some of these things we've already just started discussing that what we want to put in there, and I don't know if there's an easy way to find out where they are and put them into a document that can exist for that working group that Commissioner Renaud was talking about to look at. That would be great if anybody has the capability of figuring out what those all are. But I agree that with Ms. Iona that the rules around public input, I'm not even quite sure that the ones that were used at the last meeting reflected what we had suggested from the Community Engagement Committee, Subcommittee. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Christine, I think what I had heard from some of the commissioners is that that topic could be put in the parking lot as well.
Mm-hmm. That's what I have down. So this is what I have in the parking lot. Please confirm or just please add the section 5A that you all discussed earlier, you want in the parking lot. What is the commission's timeline? We should have feedback on that by the end of the month at the very latest. I believe you did timelines for serving and terms. There may be more discussion on that. Agenda setting language needs to be discussed. Draft language for multiple chairs will be submitted back into the document so we can all see that before it goes to the full commission. City council quarterly reports. The red section at the bottom on who establishes subcommittees, the public comment process, and general operating rules. That's what I have in the parking lot.
Does that sound right to everybody? I see one nodded head, 2 thumbs up. Great. Dan, I didn't see any response from you.
Oh, I nodded.
Okay, I'm just double checking. My eyes
Okay.
have to flicker over lots of squares, so. Okay.
Oh, well, that's the share screen problem.
Okay.
And to be clear, your nod sometimes comes off like,
Okay, well, how do people feel about ending early today, which isn't really early at all?
I vote we adjourn.
Thank you for your time. Y'all did a lot of work today. I can't second anything. I'm a facilitator, so thank you, Jason. Are we all in agreement? See you next time. See you the 10th.
Bye-bye. Guys,
Bye-bye.
have a great weekend.
Thanks,
Have a
everyone.
great weekend, everyone.
Great work today.